My friends, today is a dark day in the United States of America. That's not drama, it's actually overcast right now. In all seriousness, I've been talking about right to repair on this channel for the past 13 years. And when I talk about right to repair, I've talked about it within the context of consumer electronics, laptops, cell phones, televisions. I've talked about it for tractors. I've talked about it for medical equipment. I've talked about it in a lot of ways that you may be able to grasp because these are things that affect you. And you may wonder, how does military right to repair affect me? This is not an issue for me. I don't agree with the way the United States military does things. And frankly, if they're not able to have another warplane, that's okay by me. And one of the things to understand is that you and I, we work on something called a budget. We have this much money, we have this much that we can spend, so when something breaks, we either go without or we fix it. Whereas the United States military, they just get a bigger budget every single year. So if they're not able to fix things, what that means is that they take more of your money, which is something that I think is not in your best interest as a U.S. taxpayer, to see to it that the money that you spend does not get wasted on $260,000 of shipping. It doesn't get wasted on replacing a $100,000 card when a wire will do, that it allows people to have access to things like a login for a router so that when they're out at sea, they are not stuck with a communication system that functionally doesn't operate unless they fly a contractor out there at a cost of several $1,000,000. The one thing that I would ask of you, there's going to be a link down below to where you could go to support the Warrior Right to Repair Act. This Warrior Right to Repair Act is a bipartisan act in the United States Senate. If the military is able to fix their own stuff, which is one of the largest sectors of United States spending, and right to repair gets put into the culture there, it might just start to actually show up in other areas as well. Supporting right to repair in one place means supporting right to repair everywhere. And above all, supporting right to repair and the ability to fix things rather than throw them away when it is with an agency that has over $800 billion budget that goes up by 5 to 10% every year. I'm just saying, as a taxpayer, that's something I have interest in. With that, I'm going to play you these stories. Can you just introduce the audience to yourself?
So I was in the Marine Corps for about 16 and a half years. I was a tank mechanic.
So my name's John Eshman. I'm a former E2 NFO.
I got out of the Navy in December of 2019. So it's been a few years.
My name is Kevin Corsi. I joined the Navy right out of high school as an electronics technician nuclear.
First question is, what do you think the primary problem is with how repair works in the military before we dig into any of the specific examples that you had brought up?
Probably the biggest is just how the contracts are written. We have a contract, but it's not written in there that we can actually change anything or fix it. Or when you're out at sea, things happen and we've got to be able to take care of ourselves and fix things. And if the contract says, well, no, you can't, well, that's a problem. And then if someone does try to fix it, you can get in trouble for fixing it. So the E2 Hawkeye, like I mentioned earlier, it's airborne early warning, command and control platform of the Navy, carrier-based. So it's kind of the eyes in the sky, if you will. It's a communications platform. Essentially, it was a router. Like you have a home router, you log in with your password, you got troubleshooting. You just log in with a password, username and password, and you look at your stuff, you troubleshoot, you fix it, you back on the internet, and you're good. This system was, for all practical purposes, that. We had some problems, and I was in the squadron. I was an avionics division officer. I know my guys. They know what they're doing. They're trained to work on this platform. These guys are smart. They know what they're doing. They can handle this. We were stuck because we can't log in. This is part of a program that's contracted out. We reach out to him. He's hundreds, thousands miles away. We tell him what's going on. Hey, we even troubleshoot it down. We need to log into this router. So we reach out to this contractor, and he refused. Even my commanding officer reached out to him. This is my squadron. I'm the commanding officer. I will take this password information. Still refused. So we can't even use a communication system on this bird because this contractor doesn't want to give us the rights to log in and actually confirm what's wrong and try to troubleshoot. No, he has to do it himself. I have to get someone to fly out to the carrier to fix the system. No, we're at sea. We potentially at war. I need my guys to have all the information to fix this bird on the carrier because we're not getting support. We're thousands of miles away from home.
The 05 commander was not even able to get that login to that after asking. So this would kind of be like if the Waltons asked for the password to the Linksys WRT54G router at a Walmart, and after doing that, still were not able to get it as the owners.
Essentially. Yeah. Hopefully they've resolved all of this stuff since when I was dealing with this in 21 and 22, having all these issues with these systems. And then Havquick in particular, that system on the ship's company had trouble getting it to work, and they had to call us down to try to help them fix it. And then when I was in there messing with it, I got to look into figuring it out and realizing, okay, this is a Windows XP system with a Pentium 4 processor. This is 2020 and 2021 at this point. So Pentium 4, how are you going to get replacement part for this? Where are you going to easily find a Pentium 4 to get this system running up again if it breaks? And who's going to fix it? The sailors didn't have the proper documentation even to get it working. This is insane.
So just to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, where you worked, the policy was if you have donors and spares, even if we're not in an emergency situation whatsoever, we're always going to use the donor spare and replace it, and we're only going to do component level repairs during an emergency.
Correct. The price of hardware is absurd. I've definitely had thoughts of, hey, I'm holding something that is worth more than the house I'm going to buy eventually.
How do we get the new parts? How do we source the parts? And what we end up noticing is more and more aircraft were sitting on the parking strip with orders saying, we need this part, and there's a TBD on that date, and we don't know when we'll get it.
If Congress were to actually pass a right to repair bill for military equipment, what should they be focusing on primarily that are the major drivers of issues with repair when it comes to the military? Not just in how long it takes, but also how much it costs. Like, what are the things that should be focused on that may not be in the spotlight right now?
Access to schematics. This is an interesting one that I think you might find funny. There will be so many times where we would be troubleshooting. We were actually trying to figure out what the problem was, and we couldn't get further. And we would call our tech rep, our Boeing tech rep, who would come out and say, I can't help you. I don't have access to looking at that. They would then call an engineer who is one level above them. And that engineer would come with these schematics that had everything. And we were like, where did you get this from? And why don't we have this? And they would take it with them. They would let us look at it. Like, we would have to trace it, but they wouldn't let us make copies of it. They wouldn't let us take it away from them. They wouldn't let it out of their sight. And then when they left, the schematic left with them. And I'm just like, we own this. Like, this aircraft belongs to us. Why don't we have access to everything in the aircraft?
With the transition to heavily relying on external contractors, we are converting our electronics technicians to ITs because the procedure is just, oh, whatever, swap out that card, somebody else will pay for it, whatever. Over time, eventually you're going to get to a point where when you have that critical emergency of, I need to actually fix something, eventually you're going to run into a case where you need somebody to actually fix something, and that skill has not been established, taught, or practiced.
So when we order parts, there's priorities. Higher the priority, the faster we get the item. But with faster shipping comes cost. I once ordered an item while I was overseas, and the item was $160,000, and the shipping there was $260,000. And I never saw these numbers while I was here in the U.S. None of us see those numbers.
Is that the tank or the part for the tank? 260.
A part for the tank.
And that was the shipping, or that was the shipping plus the part?
No, the shipping alone was $260,000.
Well, what? So how is this being delivered? By F-35?
The fiscal people who track the money everywhere can see it. But us as Marines who are just doing the maintenance, ordering parts and whatnot, we never see the cost of the shipping.
So I'm imagining that you and your team would make different choices with regards to which shipping option you chose. If you could see the U.S. taxpayer is paying $200,000 to get it by Monday, and maybe $4,000 to get it by Tuesday. Am I correct there?
I wouldn't. The commander was like, no, we need this now. I would be willing to go argue with him. Like, look, it does us no good. It's not like the item needs to be used now. We're not doing anything now. Like, one day is not going to make a difference because that money can be allocated elsewhere. It can provide more maintenance and more repairs in the future. And it saves money. Us in the military, I know we get paid by taxpayers' dollars, but we're still paying taxes ourselves.
So the schematics, the way they work is there's different levels of schematics with the systems that we worked on. Some of them would be wiring diagrams. They literally show you the direction of the wire and what systems they connect to. Other of them, operational schematics, they didn't really show the direction of the wire. They really showed the logic of how one system logically connects to another and how it logically affects other systems. There might become a disparity at a certain point where it says, I cannot troubleshoot further because these wires don't exist on this diagram. You might need to troubleshoot further and say, hey, maybe it's not this expensive $110,000 component. Maybe it's a wire that I can literally replace myself, but you don't know that.
One thing he said there I just wanted to leave my own comment on is when he was talking about the difference between the type of schematic that says this is a line that goes to a box of a system and this is a schematic that shows you how the system is put together. Is that's the same thing that we're talking about when I say here is a schematic on how the Apple motherboard is put together, and here is Apple's instructions that they give their authorized service providers that tell you here's how to take the motherboard out of the computer and put in a new one. There's documentation and then there's actual documentation. And what I find very interesting the further I go down the rabbit hole is everything I've been talking about when it comes to fixing consumer electronics not only applies to agricultural gear like tractors and medical devices, but it also applies to gear at the military level as well. This is about so much more than just being able to fix consumer electronics, cell phones, MacBooks, and everything else. At a cultural level, we have lost the plot when it comes to repair and allowing people that actually fix things to be able to have access to what it is they need to make things work again, so that you could save time, save money, and get to a point where you're not pissing off BlackBerry the cat. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing, if we've gotten anything across here, is that you don't piss off BlackBerry the kitty. I'm going to have a link to a form down below. It's going to make it as easy as possible for you to email your representatives based on your address so that you don't have to go through the figuring out who is your senator, who is your Congress representative, how do I email them, what do I say. It's going to make all of this as easy as humanly possible. There's going to be a link in the pinned comment of this video. If you would like to see the military fix their stuff and think this is an important issue, you will be able to use that to email or call your representative. It'll try to make everything as easy for you as possible. So my comments aren't filled up with the, who is my senator? What is an email? How do I contact them? What is I could just click the link. It'll make it easy for you. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. And remember, by clicking that link and emailing your senator, you are making BlackBerry very happy. Show them your happy face, girl. Happy face. What a good kitty. You didn't knock over the camera for a whole 20 minutes. What a good girl. What a good girl. Good kitty. See you in the next one. Bye now.